followers, this is Shasta's Journey, and my name is Shasta Garcia. This show is about my path to purpose, and along that journey, I get to meet so many incredible people, much like the guest who I have today. Her name is Margaret Jensen, and she is the founder of Pearl Gates Heaven Ministries, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear everything that this ministries has to offer for our community and the people around us, and just kind of hear her journey of life and how her faith has influenced that. Hi, Margaret.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
It's so good to be with you, Shasta.
How long have you been doing Pearl Gates of Heaven Ministries?
Since 2003.
Okay, and what inspired you to start it?
Well, actually, it's kind of a long story. I had my kids were gone from home, and life goes on, and I was feeling like I didn't have much purpose anymore. I had started gold prospecting adventures and ran that for about 10 years. And one day I was just, telling God, I need a purpose. And then I seen this advertisement on TV about Israel. I'd never had a desire to go there, but then all of a sudden I wanted to go. And so I said, okay, and I wanted confirmation. So anyway, I went, and while I was in Israel, I was in the upper room, and I had a vision of Jesus and the apostles sitting around the table. And one of them was just kind of moving, and everything else was static. And so I just kind of waited, and then the vision was gone, and then I was in the bus going back to our next site that we were going to, and I was talking to God, and I says, I felt like that person that wasn't moving, that was moving, was me. Why was everything else static? And God says, because they're up here with me, and I want you to do my work for me. And so that was the call that I got, and when I retired from Lockheed, I helped set up the space shuttle company and worked in Sunnyvale, Lockheed. And so we bought a property, this property that we now have here in Calaveras County. And that was the start of it all. And while I was in Israel, God told me to tell people to listen. And so that's kind of what started the whole thing. I was supposed to tell people to listen because he wanted them to hear him speaking to them. And as he had me tell two people that were there, and he told me I could no longer be passive. If I seen somebody doing something wrong, I would have to speak up. I could not be passive. So that kind of started the whole thing, and then it was like, develop this into a biblical garden and make the Bible come alive.
Wow.
So that's the process, that's what the calling was, to make the Bible come alive and help people recognize when God is speaking to them.
What exactly happens at your property, and what is your ministries?
At the property is called Mount Zion Biblical Garden, and we have trails there that people can come out and walk. We have a small little lake, and people can come out there, they can walk the trails, they can pray, they can meditate, they can have a picnic, or they can go fishing. We also have vacation rentals so that they can stay there if they want, like for a weekend or a week or something. They can have baptisms out there.
How neat.
We've had a few with weddings or, different events, prayer events. We host a few. We host the Passion Walk. We host the Passover meal, the National Day of Prayer. Sometimes in the fall we have like a Harvest Festival, kind of a Halloween alternative. So
I would like to go into
rallies.
depth a little bit more with those different events. What is the Passion Walk?
It is, we do that the Friday before Resurrection or Easter. And we have a trail that goes up the mountain, And we have pictures, fine art pictures posted along the way so that people can kind of identify with what Jesus was going through at his crucifixion. So
How many?
it has changed people's lives. There was one girl said that her life was totally changed, and she just decided she was going to start following Jesus and
Oh, wow.
walking a new way.
And how has this ministries affected your life?
Well, I guess it has taken me around the world. It has, you know, and I do most of the work out there myself, the mowing, the cleaning, everything. But God has called me to go to the nations, and I have gone to several different nations now.
Okay, and what do you normally do at those different places?
Well, some, I've gone like to Guatemala. I was asked to come down there and pray over the country. Mexico, I went down to do some help with some mission, building some missions, putting roofs on missions, and building bathhouses and stuff. In Thailand, we went up into the jungle where the people from Burma, Myanmar, have escaped from the persecution, and Thailand has given them a place. So we went up there, took medical supplies in, and ministered to the people up there. In Kenya, we've gone and took food in. We built an orphanage. We have maybe about 100 people that we're feeding now, orphans. And Uganda, I've gone there. We've helped them. And in fact, this morning I got an invitation to come back and be their speaker at the maturity conference, they call it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and so different. And I think my first one was Korea, where I went to work with the children.
My first mission trip was actually last year, and I got to go to Mexico to an orphanage, and that kind of totally knocked me to a different direction along my path to purpose. And that's kind of what started Shasta's journey, because I used to host a different talk show, and then after going on that mission trip, just my eyes were really opened up to just kind of more about my purpose, and so I started Shasta's journey, and it's just kind of neat to be able to meet so many incredible people who, you know, God is using them, or, you know, their faith has impacted their journey of life, and so I just really love hearing about that.
Yeah, it is. Even on the property, people come, and ask for prayer, and I've watched a man's leg grow. Sometimes we've given people shelter when they were in need. An older gentleman that stayed out there, he was one of my guides for prospecting, and he got evicted from his home at 90 years old, you believe. Anyway.
Wow.
He came out there, and one day we put a cross up on the top of the hill. Most people in Calaveras County will see it. And he looked up one morning. I went down there after I moved him down to our place, and went down there, told him I was going to go in and get some supplies, and I'd come back and help him get settled in. I'm sorry. And so he says, "You work too hard." And I said, "Well, don't worry about me. The good Lord takes care of me." And he took my arm and he says, "You know what? I saw him up on the cross." He says, "He takes care of me too now." So he started having visions, and I know he's up in heaven now.
Well, I really want to make a trip to the garden and just kind of see, you know, how it impacts my life. How would you describe your faith and how it has impacted your journey of life so far?
I don't remember a time when I didn't know Jesus. I've always loved Jesus. And but my faith after going to Israel, when I was there, it changed my life. And nothing else mattered after being there. And Jesus just became so much more alive. And then when he gave me the commission as to what to do. So it is by purpose. You know, it's all about getting to heaven and bringing as many people with us as we can.
Couldn't agree more. What are a few main key points as far as just kind of positive things that God has brought out through your ministry so far?
Well, there's so many. We have seen so many lives changed, and when I went, we have a website, and some people get on the website and then they contact us. And we've had pastors, 2 pastors from Kenya that had contacted us and asked for more teachings. So we have teachings on our website. And also we started communicating every day with teachings. And so then they started to fast and pray and said that I was coming to see them. And I'm like, okay, if God confirms this with me, I'll come. And then on Facebook, we put out a scripture and then a short prayer every day I do. And a bishop in Uganda had written to me on my Facebook and said that they had a problem, that they lost their church because the rent went up. And so he asked if we could help him, and I said, we can't help you financially, but I will pray that God will provide a place. So a couple weeks later, he says, we're waiting to receive you. And I'm just like, God, if you're sending me, would you confirm it with me? And that day I went into Angels Camp, and I saw one of my friends. And she says, my husband says, you're going to Africa, and we're to pay your way. And I thought, that's confirmation enough for me. And so I went, and I prayed over them. And since then, that was October 2013. Since then, we have started 6 more churches in Kenya.
My goodness.
These are, they took this picture for me just a couple months ago and sent it to me on an email. And those are our pastors, and then the 3 more that are ready to take over churches. We go into new villages. They evangelize.
Okay.
They see miracles, and the people just decide they're going to follow Jesus, and then we place a pastor in that village.
So this is a village that you guys ended up creating and building, correct?
Yeah, we have, yeah.
So look at all these amazing people who are being impacted by this ministry that she's being used for. It's really incredible.
Yeah, there's probably at least 20 people or more in each village that we've gone into. And then we end up bringing the orphans back into our main villages where we built the orphanage. So it keeps growing, and it's amazing.
Do you keep in touch with these people?
Every day. Every day we communicate. Yeah.
What was one of your main points throughout this journey so far where you really just felt that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be and I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing? If
in my journey or in Kenya?
In your journey.
In my journey? I guess when I was in Israel, when he called me.
And that's when you just knew.
And and I just knew. And then there was a gentleman who came out, and we were in our little chapel, and we were just sitting there and just kind of enjoying the presence of God. And he looked outside, and he says, I see a whole group of people all with their hands raised, worshiping God. And I thought, well, that's nice, you know. I didn't see anything. And then a couple, maybe months later, a friend of mine, actually the son of the gentleman that I told you about that received Jesus when he was 90-some years old, he had called and said that asked if he could come over, that his mother-in-law was sick. She had a stroke, and she was in bed. They had, her whole left side was paralyzed, and they had been in a coma for 3 days, and they disconnected the tubes that his wife was waiting there for her to die. Her name was Irma, and he says, could I come out and pray with you? And I said, sure, come on out, meet me in the chapel in the morning. And we went down there and prayed, and we were kneeling and praying, and he looked outside, and he says, I see a whole group of people out there, all with their hands raised, worshiping God. And the same words, and these two people have never met. And then the day that we dedicated the property, we had a band out and a whole big thing to do a dedication of Mount Zion Biblical Gardens to God. Mm-hmm. There was a woman, and she says, I see the miracle of loaves and fishes. I see people all over the side of the mountain.
Wow.
And then there was another woman that called, and she says, I see white down by your statue of Jesus. And she says, I hear music. And she says, I just know that there's something going to happen there. And that's where we ended up having a stage there, where we host the National Day of Prayer and different things there. Mm-hmm. So those 4 people who God gave visions to have impacted me to the point where I know, beyond a doubt, this is what I'm supposed to do. No matter what, this is what I'm supposed to do.
I mean, I think that's a great way to confirm, mm-hmm. for sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about National Prayer Day. Mm-hmm. It was on May 7th. Mm-hmm. And just tell me a little bit about it and just kind of how Mount Zion, mm-hmm. Zion Biblical Garden, mm-hmm. Just kind of what took place there.
Well, we have set up a program, and people come out. We line up speakers, musicians, singers, and we cover the topics of media, school, family, government, all the different topics that need prayer. Mm-hmm. And so we have pastors from different churches, the superintendent of schools, chief of police. You know, they all come out, and then they pray. They tell us some of the issues and problems that are going on mm-hmm. in our county, which is pretty much the same all over the world, the country anyway. And so then they identify the problems, and then we pray about it, you know. So, and it's just a fantastic day, and it is so encouraging to see how many people in our mm-hmm. county are good, strong Christians, and they're leaders in our county.
What else happened during prayer day? I mean, I know that you guys have like different time increments of mm-hmm. things you pray about and different things. Mm-hmm. Are there people there who aren't Christians who do attend National Prayer Day at all?
Actually, there was one. There's more. They do, but one day after we had finished prayer, we had one group left to pray, and that was those that were praying for the sanctity of life. And this man comes up there, and you could tell he was drinking. And he says, I don't know why I'm here. But he says, I just couldn't drive past. I had to pull in. And so we looked at each other, and we thought, we know why you're here. Mm-hmm. And so we invited him in, and we fed him, because we always have a community meal that day, so there was food sitting out and stuff. So we fed him and had him sit down, and we just decided we'd minister to him instead of what we were doing. And so he accepted Jesus that night as his Savior. And he came back the next day to pick up a Bible. And
you're doing some pretty incredible things.
It's fascinating, you know, and one couple came out and they found my book in one of the rentals, and they read about it, and they came up, and the woman says, would you pray for my husband? He has a back problem.
What book are you talking about? You have it with you?
Yes.
Awesome.
Actually, this is for you.
Oh, thank you. I had no idea. Is this something that you wrote?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So
I think I've said, oh, wow, quite a bit just because I'm just...
It's about what God told me to tell people to listen. And so one day I felt he wanted me to write, and so I cleared my calendar, and I says, okay, God, I'm going to sit here for 3 weeks. if you give me something, I'll write it. If not, I'm just spending 3 weeks with you. And he just started leading me to different scriptures, and then he had told me that I should start writing a journal on my 60th birthday. He says, get a book, start writing down, because he says when things get hard, you'll need to look back at these things and remember them. And so I started writing in the journal, and it helped my prayer life so much, because my mind didn't wander. I mean, sometimes you're praying, your mind goes off where it shouldn't go, you know. And so anyway, it just improved my prayer time with the Lord, my communion with Him. And then He would take me to my old journals to include things into that book. And so all different miracles, different ways He's spoken to me. So anyway, that couple that had come up and asked for prayer, I set him down and I just, you know, I said, give me your feet. And I took his feet in my hands and I said, look, one leg's shorter than the other. And his children are standing there, and so I just prayed, you know, God, make his body line up with your words. Lengthen that leg so that they're even. And we watched his leg grow. And the children, you know, and he says, I could feel pulling. I could feel heat and pulling in that leg.
It's incredible.
So
where can people see this, or where can people get the book? Do you have it on the website?
Actually, it's on the website, and if they want, they can read it even without purchasing it. If they want to purchase it, they can contact us.
Okay.
But I have put it on there for people to read if they want to. So they can just go to our website and look under Hearing God Speak or
Writing is actually a wonderful way to kind of spill your heart out. I know that there came a point along my journey so far where I was going through so much and I had no outlet. Like I went through a loss, and then I got into a dirt biking accident, and my one of my stress relievers was running, and I wasn't allowed to run because I fractured my collarbone and a bunch of things, so I wasn't allowed to do anything that I would normally do to kind of just relieve and just kind of block everything out. And so I got a notebook one day, a journal, and instead of writing, I started writing songs. So because I used to sing, and I felt it in my heart to just start writing. So I can look back on these songs that I wrote, and each song that I wrote has just a story that they just represent. And so I look forward to reading your book and just kind of, seeing all your different trials and tribulations you've been through.
Well, that's not what's in there.
No, I know, but obviously
it's different ways God spoke to me.
Exactly.
It's what's in there, like through dreams, through visions, through his speaking audibly.
Well, speaking of challenges, what are some challenges that you have overcame so far?
Oh, golly, there's so many. I think one big one was when my son I was in a car accident before he was born, and so I had to be down a lot during that time. And then he was very sickly. He was my third child. And so it was very stressful for me because we had just lost one of my nieces who was 3 years old. And so I had him ask the doctor if he would refer me to somebody else because we had a family practitioner, because he would just too sickly. And we found that he had a blood vessel wrapped around the tube between his kidney and his bladder. So he had to have major surgery at 7 months old. And then actually we lost him about 3 years ago. He passed away. He had some strokes, so that was very difficult. And when we bought the property, we ended up having neighbors suing us over boundary lines and used up our life savings. And so there's so many trials and things that that come against you when you're trying to do something God has put you to do. And so there's just so many different things. And there was about 9 years when my daughter wouldn't allow me to see my grandchildren. That broke my heart. So but you overcome all these things because God is faithful, and He can give you peace through any trial.
How can people get involved and volunteer, maybe through your property or for your ministries? How would people go about doing that?
Well, they can contact on our website, or they can call us, or they can come out. But I'm not always there, or I might be out working somewhere doing something.
And what is your website?
www.mountzionbiblicalgarden.com, or you can just Google Pearl Gates of Heaven Ministries.com and then come up.
Okay. And what is some advice that you have for different people out there who are just kind of figuring out what their purpose is?
Seek the Lord. Pray and listen. One of the people that God told me to go and tell her to listen while I was in Israel, that was a message that he gave me for her, to tell her to listen. And then when I went there, and I says, God said that when you pray, you tell him all these things, but you never wait for his answer. And she got so excited, she hugged me and everything, But she was already taking her luggage off the turnstile because I was just too chicken. All these times I kept thinking I should go tell her, but I didn't want to. I said, well, God, why don't you tell her?
Those moments, for sure.
Yeah, just the fear of what they will, say or do.
What's your favorite Bible verse and why, and how can it encourage people who are
Well, I have
watching?
so many favorites, but one is Psalm 37:4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will grant you your heart's request or your heart's desire. And another one is Romans 8:28. That God turns all things together for good for those who are called for his purpose and love him.
I actually really do love that one. If there's something in particular that you wish people would get out of this show, what might that be?
To know how real God is. I think a lot of people have head knowledge, but he's not real to them. Because when God becomes real to you, you just love him so much that you're willing to do anything for him or go through anything. People ask me, are you afraid to go to this country? And I'm like, no. I know the language. You don't know the language? I said, sure I do. They said, you know Korean? I says, no. I know the language of love.
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah. And even when we were being smuggled into Burma, we're going up the Mo River in this little boat. And I was just, telling God how much I forgot that I really love the water, because I haven't done a lot of that lately.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being a part of my journey and for sharing your story. I appreciate it so much. And thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you can go and share your journey of faith with me at www.shastasjourney.com, and I would just love to hear kind of what's happening in your life. And have a blessed day, guys. Bye-bye.